Hello there everyone, UXW Bill here once again, and today I'd like to tell you about a little radio that I paid way too much money for. This is the Sony ICF-M410V model, sometimes also identified as a Sony LIV, L-I-V radio. I don't know if the LIV designation had any special meaning to Sony or this particular radio. All I could tell you for sure is that the owner's manual for this set is particularly uninformative on the matter of this particular radio's name. Various examples of this radio that I found online seem to suggest that the LIV branding was not always present and that this unit may have been offered in additional color choices as well. How is it that I happen to pay too much for this radio? Well, a very curious thing happens when 4 letters from the alphabet, S-O-N and Y, appear on a particular item that ends up at the Goodwill. Those 4 letters signal the Goodwill or whoever prices their stuff to charge way too much for an item. And so it is that I am not at all proud to admit that I gave $10 plus a little bit extra when taxes, shipping, and gouging were factored in for this particular radio. Now, it seems that people are particularly polarized about the styling of this radio in various reviews that I read online concerning it. Some people felt that the styling of this particular set was a little too much on perhaps the feminine side, in that it might be said to look like a woman's purse or even a handbag. I personally do not agree. I think this radio's styling is pretty awesome. I like these silver accents, and well, to be perfectly honest with you, who couldn't love a salmon-colored radio? I know I certainly do. It's a welcome departure from the usual white, black, and silver radios that are flooding the market. I almost didn't purchase this particular radio, but one thing that stood out about it was the condition that it happened to be in. You see, stuff like this ends up thrown onto a shelf with all kinds of other bric-a-brac at the Goodwill. And yes, I love the phrase bric-a-brac. And it usually ends up being just beaten to death before someone finally buys it and takes it home. It ends up getting scuffed, scratched, scraped, dented, almost anything you can imagine. And this little radio seemed like it was in such nice shape, apart from a few light scratches on the status display screen, that I just didn't feel I could leave it there. I know, it's kind of stupid, but I ended up taking it home with me, and I soon discovered that beauty is more than skin deep. This radio is not the most selective set that I have ever used, but at least in the case of this particular example, oh boy, is it ever sensitive. And Sony certainly loaded this unit up with a lot of very nice features concerning its user interface and, as previously mentioned, its overall performance. One of the first features that you'll notice most readily is the unit's built-in clock. This is a 12-hour AM/PM clock. I don't see any provision for a 24-hour display, and even if there is one, Sony did not make any use of it. The radio is also digitally tuned. It uses the time display to indicate the frequency that you are currently receiving, and it receives across 4 different bands: TV, weather, FM, and AM. Of course, the television band here in the United States is by and large completely defunct at this particular point. In addition to the clock functionality that Sony built in, there is also a feature that they referred to as standby. You and I might think of this as more of an alarm clock sort of a function. What this function can be utilized to accomplish is the turning on of the radio at a particular time. So you could in fact use it as an alarm clock, although you would have to like waking up to the radio if you did, because this unit does not have any kind of a tone or beeper style alarm. I imagine that Sony probably intended for this feature to receive the most use for people who wanted a radio receiver that would turn itself on whenever a desired time was reached. A sleep timer is also provided with this particular set. You can choose any time in 5 to 15-minute intervals, depending upon how close you get to the 0 mark, for a sleep timer if you like to fall asleep to the radio. And rounding out the set of features is an instant reception button for the weather band, which cannot be chosen using the band switch provided for all the other reception bands, and you also get to choose from 5 station presets. You can store 5 of your favorite stations on any of the supported reception bands that this radio offers. There is a hold switch to keep the settings from being accidentally modified. When you turn it on, a key style symbol appears in the display to clearly indicate that the controls will not work as long as the hold function is turned on, this is great. If you wanted to carry the radio around, or you were worried about it brushing around inside anything that you might be carrying it in, like say luggage or even a handbag, if that's your kind of thing, you can simply set the hold button and the radio will not turn itself on. The power switch, of course, will turn the set on. It will also turn it off. I know, that sounds like Captain Obvious, doesn't it? On the side, there are two controls. One of them is for tuning and time set. When you go to set the clock on this particular radio and you cross the AM-PM divider, that is to say you go from 11:59 p.m. to 12 a.m. or 11:59 p.m. to 12 a.m. Wow, I kind of bungled that, didn't I? Well, either way, when you cross the AM-PM divider in the clock setting mode, this set will beep at you to indicate that you have crossed that line and that you may want to verify that you are in fact setting the time as you intend to be doing. Sony also provided, as indicated by these arrows on the right-hand side of the case here, that this unit is capable of 2-speed tuning and time setting operations. If you turn this control in either direction of its travel to the first detent, you will hear a click, and tuning or time setting will progress slowly. If you turn the control a little further, you will hear a second click. Sounds slightly different than the first, and tuning or time setting will progress at a much faster rate. And finally, rounding out the collection of user-accessible controls is a conventional volume adjustment dial. On the other side of the unit, there is a DC power input connection for an optional power adapter. Sony did not supply one with this unit, although reviews online again strongly indicate that battery life with this particular model is very, very good. And then rounding out the options and accessible controls on this side is a connection for an earphone. This particular radio does not offer stereo reception on any of the AM, FM, or television bands, and in fact if you connect a stereo type headset to this unit, it will only play through one speaker. So Sony got an awful lot of stuff on this unit, right? What are some of the things that they could have done better or they missed entirely? Well, for a radio that could be used in an alarm clock, possibly even in a darkened situation, it almost seems like they really should have included a display backlight, but unfortunately they did not. Also absent from this unit's feature set is Seek-style tuning. Although you can choose to tune on any radio band at a slow or fast speed, forward or reverse, there is no way to seek out active stations in your area. So if you're in an unfamiliar area and you're trying to find a station that is active and that you would enjoy on this particular set, you're left with no choice but to do so by yourself. Sony did include some features that are relevant to people who would take this radio traveling with them, potentially around the world. By default, the FM tuning steps are compatible with worldwide reception, and this set allows you to change the AM tuning steps from 10 kilohertz, as used here in the United States and Canada, and possibly a few other places as well, to 9 kilohertz steps that are sometimes used elsewhere in the world. So they really got an awful lot right with this thing, although none of that would matter if it didn't sound very good. And I have to say, as you will soon see when I do some reception tests with this particular set, that I think Sony absolutely nailed the audio quality on this thing. There's no tone control to allow you to specify reduced treble or increased bass to suit your particular individual tastes, but the audio coming from this speaker, which is probably 3 inches at best and certainly not very deep, as it has to fit the constraints of this particular cabinet, is exceptional. It's got a surprising amount of solid bass reproduction capability, and the high end is very, very prominent as well, but not overpowering. It also has to be said that while on AM this thing is not the most high-performance tuner I have ever heard, in addition to pulling in distant AM and FM stations very well, its AM audio fidelity is head and shoulders above other receivers of this type that I have tried in the past, outside of those that focus on particularly high-quality AM reception. I wouldn't say this thing has the most wideband AM audio reception and reproduction capability that I have ever heard, but compared to how other radios sound, this thing is a revelation. There actually is some high end to the audio. We'll go ahead and take a quick look at the back panel here before I get to the audio reproduction and tuning demonstrations and band scans and all the things that you'd probably much rather see instead of listening to me sit here and blather about this radio. We'll go ahead and take a look at the batteries. This unit takes its power from 3 AA cells for a total of 4.5 volts. And again, reports online strongly seem to suggest that this unit manages a lifetime of many months with incidental use from a set of batteries that happens to be installed in it. And now here's a listening test on the FM band. I'll go ahead and get some footage a little later on of reception on the AM and weather bands. I did think about trying to rig up a demonstration by corralling the output of a digital TV converter box's RF modulator to this thing's antenna, but that just seemed too much like work. So I've decided not to demonstrate the television audio reception capability. And unfortunately, I do not live in a portion of the United States where even low-power analog TV so-called translator stations are still on the air. In order to receive any radio programming, of course, we do have to turn the set on, at which point the frequency display will appear. Rather curiously, you cannot switch back to the clock on this set without actually turning it off momentarily to figure out what time it is. Seems like a curious omission from Sony. Even if you push the clock button, it goes right straight to the setting mode instead of letting you just see the time without changing it for a couple of moments. As previously mentioned, when this thing rolls over, during a time setting process, it produces 2 beeps. The same thing occurs if you reach the end of a tuning band, as I will demonstrate here at the bottom of the FM band. You receive a 2-beep audible notification to indicate that if you continue tuning, reception will roll over to the other side of the band. And as you can see from this demonstration, this set receives all the way down to 87.5 megahertz at the low end on the FM band, and at the high end on the FM band it receives up to 108 megahertz even. Again, as previously mentioned, seek tuning is not possible with this particular set. So go ahead and turn the volume up here. And you hear a little bit of white noise being generated because right now we're not on a valid station. We'll start going up through the tuning here. There's not much on the low end of the dial around here. But here's what V Westlife likes to call the piano music station. And again, this thing is not going to rattle the windows or boom your house down with the amount of sound it can produce. But it will certainly stand up and deliver if you ask it to, although that will come at the expense of battery life. I have to move on with the band scan here because I really don't want to get tagged for copyright.
Respect that. You give me a call if you want to talk at 855-5UNCOVER. You can email like Jennifer did at questions@uncoveredradio.com.
For $8 for fast delivery, order at dpdo.com. dpdo, to each his own. This holiday season, check out your
posts and inspirational things, because when I started getting back to it,
we come together holding hands.
And that is a scan of the FM band. Now, for those of you who have watched my previous demonstration videos featuring various other pieces of radio equipment in use and doing band scans, you might say to yourself, well, it doesn't seem like that thing picked up a whole lot of stations, and you certainly have a pretty high density of FM stations in your particular location. Well, you're absolutely right, but at this particular moment, I'm down in the basement, surrounded by walls that are made of heavy, heavy brick. It's very hard for any radio receiver to work well down here, and this thing is doing an exceptional job. Most radios that I have down here, even with a fairly good indoor antenna attached to them, can only manage to receive 1 or 2 stations, and usually one of those 2 is filled with all manner of noise and distortion in its reception. So this set is actually giving a very good account of itself, considering the reception environment that it's sitting in.
WSM and worldwide tonight at WSMonline.com. Ray Price and the Cherokee Cowboys from Deep and Ray's catalog from 1958. Van Howard singing the harmony on that one. Talk to Your Conscience. Great to hear Ray Price tonight. Ray's wife Janie was on this morning with Bill Cody. Hope that you got to hear that. She was on at the 9 o'clock hour when they were talking about the new project, Beauty Is, the final sessions. Nominated for a Grammy Award, we understand. That's great. Congratulations to folks involved with that new project, the latest from Ray Price, Beauty Is the Final Session. That's a masterpiece of an election. Final stuff that Ray did, and of course the early work, so wonderful too. What a great, great career. It's almost a year now since Ray passed. He died on the 16th of December last year. Before we got to hear Ray Price, one of the present-day superstars, Carrie Underwood, Something in the Water. Again, want to remind you that Carrie will be working at the Opry at the Ryman. 2 shows on Saturday night, a week from Saturday. It'll be the 13th of December. She loves the Grand Ole Opry. She could be on any stage in the world. But chooses to come and work the Opry on a regular basis. We appreciate her talent so much, and her time, too. Well, the WSM Online Shop has everything you need to make yourself a legend this holiday season, including the popular Stubbs T-shirt. Ronnie Millsap's got 5 of them. You can purchase 1 or you can purchase 5 if you'd like to. Maybe you'd like to get 6 so you'll have more than Ronnie Millsap. Well, there are books, CDs, hats, and the coffee, country, and Cody tumblers available there, too, and a whole lot more. And by joining our mailing list, you get 20% off your next purchase. Click on the shop link now at WSMonline.com and be a legend yourself for the holidays. And I just gotta see if that rock won't roll. Oh, she's so pretty.
Horse and Plow. They're a very small organic producer from the North Coast, and this is a single vineyard organic wine from Mendocino County, and they do about half of it in stainless and half of it in oak, so it's not too buttery or oaky, and it's got a nice crispness to it, so it works real well with food.
Did you get a new wine? Is this a second wine?
No. I wanted to make sure I covered because he's passionate about
He's told you about the wine like 5 times.
I have a question, though, and I don't have a different question.
Okay, all right. It was a setup.
It was a setup because it's a single vineyard. When you have the limited cases, in your experience and all of since you said more years than you care to say, has there been one that you've always kind of chased a flavor to, even like that was like the one taste that you haven't replicated? Have you ever come across that? Or you kind of meet each experience as a new, exciting one?
That's a good question.
I know. Well, I guess one of the most unique experiences I've had with wine is one time the family was on a vacation in Napa and Sonoma, and we got back, and I opened up a bottle of Dry Creek Zinfandel, and I'm drinking it, and I'm going, this smells like just where we were. This smells like Dry Creek. And then I took it, I had my wife, Maria, smell it, and I had our daughter, who didn't drink, smell it. And we both go, yeah, this is a spring day in Dry Creek.
Oh.
And
Wow.
I just thought that was just really, really fascinating, that the wine would capture what it smells like where it was produced.
Oh.
Matter, buddy, that's all it is. Just like going back into training, learning, practicing, perfecting. A man gets a power for a purpose. There's a plan to things. Dig this one, old friend. I'm going up.
My polish remover pockets as an added bonus for fast, safe, foolproof removal. But wait, because Hot Polish has over 200 spectacular shades, when you call or log on right now.
Give up. Give up. Who the hell sent you here, Sinatra? No. Sinatra had nothing to do with this, and I wouldn't talk that way about Sinatra. I don't mean...
In matters of religion. Truth is great and will prevail if left.
Well, we've seen a lot of the Greek Isles.
From the romantic white...
There's a fish nastiness everywhere you walk. My principal would call and be like, hello, Mr. and Mrs. Cotter. We believe Grant put it... I don't know why my principal sounds like Obama. We believe Grant...
Information to wreak havoc on your life. This.
I took the antenna out of the box, plugged it into my TV, and in just a few minutes, I was watching free network broadcast HD TV.
No comparison. Call right now and you'll get the...
Just $19 a month, you can join Wounded Warrior Project. You'll help provide critical...
Anyone could do it with Gloria.
Modern Family.
Back up. It's the best vacuum I've ever used.
The rotator-powered lift-away is a must-have for...
Thank you for watching, and feel free to leave a comment if you have one.